We're coming on the air with some breaking news from the Supreme Court about former President Donald Trump. The High Court just issued a ruling about Mr. Trump's plea for immunity from criminal prosecution for official acts taken during his time in the White House. At the heart of this case, Mr. Trump insists that he cannot be criminally charged for his alleged efforts to block the transfer of power following the 2020 election. And we have to tell you, this is, yes, a historic, complicated decision. Our team of legal experts is going to take an extra moment here to really dive into the High Court's decision so that we can clearly explain what it means. While they do that here, let us turn to our senior Washington correspondent, Hallie Jackson, there in D.C., to remind us all of what's at stake here. Hallie?
A lot, Craig, is the short answer to that question. It is both generational and also very specific. It is generational because it's possible that the Supreme Court will now set a new standard for presidential immunity moving forward for history. A legacy move here for generations to come yet. And specifically for former President Trump, it also obviously deeply matters to that federal election interference case against him. What the justices will decide as we are watching our team of legal experts there and correspondents hunched over their laptops sifting through this decision here. And let me explain what's at the heart of this case. Whether what the former president did as it related to the election interference scheme that he's alleged of conducting were those acts unofficial or official. If they were unofficial, then his attorney concedes he could potentially be prosecuted for those. If they were official, he would, in theory, be immune to prosecution. That's the case that the former president's team is making. So let me give you an example. When the former president calls a private attorney, Rudy Giuliani, who then spread election fraud lies, his own attorney conceded that that would be a private, unofficial act. On the other hand, Mr. Trump calls the head of the Republican National Committee to talk about that fake elector scheme. His attorney insists that that is official. So that is what our team is parsing here. What specifically has the Supreme Court decided here on each of those matters? Now, the former president himself, in a new interview just released this morning that was taped yesterday, is seeming to downplay the impact of the immunity case against him. But remember why this is so critical. It is all about, and I'm talking politically here, it is all about the timing for him. His team is seeking to delay this as much as possible, past the November election, because that is the political reality here, that the former president could, in theory, end up back in the White House come January. In theory, he could potentially pardon himself. That is uncharted territory here, so we don't want to get over our skis on that front. But the timing is what is so critical. The judge in this case has said that she would not, in fact, move forward with the trial until about 3 months after this case gets back to her. We've been waiting on this decision coming down, not just on the very last day of this Supreme Court term, but the very last case on the very last day of the Supreme Court term. We know that politically, when the former president faces these legal issues, and they are in the headlines, that he gets a boon as it relates to fundraising. After his hush money conviction, remember, state case, not this case, very different, he raised something like $141 million in the month of May. We are waiting, obviously, to see any reaction from his campaign, Craig. We'll bring it to you as soon as we get it, but I have to tell you, it is my guess that they are doing the same thing that we are doing, looking through this decision, determining how it will, in fact, specifically impact this case against Mr. Trump, Craig.
And, of course, Hallie, as we're having this conversation, there are a number of members in the Democratic Party just 4 days after that mediocre debate performance, shall we say, already in a panic. One has to wonder what this decision could mean for the sitting president. For that angle, let us bring in now our Meet the Press moderator, Kristen Welker, also standing by for us there in Washington. So, Kristen, what say you to that? Again, I watched your show yesterday. We heard from a number of Democrats expressing myriad concerns about the current administration and the campaign. Any idea how this decision could impact President Biden's campaign come November?
Well, so far, we have not seen these legal cases really impact former President Donald Trump's standing. And again, as Hallie says, if the ultimate takeaway here is that the cases that have been brought by Jack Smith are delayed until after the November election, the impact could be that there just continues to be this focus on President Biden, his devastating debate performance. Now, it's worth noting, Craig, 62% of Americans say that Trump should not have immunity for actions that he took while he was in office as president. So that's a little snapshot of how the public sees this case. But again, in terms of the broader polling that we have seen so far, his legal battles have not dragged down his polling. In terms of what is happening inside the president's inner orbit, we know that after that debate performance this weekend, he was at a previously scheduled trip to Camp David. His family was taking photographs with famed photographer Annie Leibovitz. At that gathering at Camp David, they did discuss the fallout from the debate. What should next steps look like? We are told that the family has urged him to stay in this race, to fight, and publicly he's been defiant.
Kristen, stand by. Our crack team of legal experts, they've been sifting through this decision. Our senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett's been digging through it. 6-3 decision. What's the highlight?
Craig, we have here a landmark decision in American history as it relates to presidential power that will define the limits of that power for generations to come. The divided court now deciding here that the former president does enjoy some immunity. There is a dispute about how much and to what extent. But what we do know is that this case is now going to go back to the lower court for further delineation about what is immune, what is official, and what is not. The Chief Justice here accusing his liberal colleagues of striking a chilling tone that's disproportionate to what the court actually does. So you see a dispute here with the liberals saying that they've gone much further than the conservatives think that they actually have gone here. But they are saying that immunity extends to official discussions between the president and his attorney general. But they're going to put it back in the hands of the lower court, Judge Chutkan, the trial court, to determine what extent Trump's remaining alleged conduct is entitled to immunity. Remember, this is the case where he's been accused of trying to overturn the last election through lies and through fraud. He has resisted that and obviously denied any wrongdoing and has said that everything he did was completely within presidential powers, and that if you don't offer immunity to presidents, then they'll just essentially be handicapped into not being able to do their job, right? That there will just be a series of recriminations with the next administration prosecuting the former one. Again, the conservative majority here saying the president does enjoy some immunity, but there is no immunity when it involves unofficial acts. So say the president committed a crime, say he killed his wife or he robbed a bank while he was in office. Yeah. That's not immune. But anything having to do with things that he was doing as president, as part of those official duties, the conservative majority thinks that is immune. And therefore, it now has to go back to the lower court for more process, which means more delays, which really is going to have a big effect on timing of this case to be able to get completed and finished before the November election.
It sounds as if there's little to no chance that this case sees a courtroom before the November election.
I need to go through it. It's a lengthy opinion. I want to see what they say, if anything, about timing, because as of right now, I don't see them acting with any alacrity. I don't see the urgency here quite yet, but we're going to work our way through and see if they address that in some respect. And I'm sure the liberal branch of this, I'm sure, has something to say about timing.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every weekday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 Pacific on our streaming channel, Today All Day. To watch, head to today.com/allday or click the link right here.